Welcome to AI in Action, a podcast where we cut through the noise and explore the wins, the challenges, and the messy middle of AI adoption. My guest today is Rajith Haththotuwegama, and Rajith is an industry leader in deep tech, strategy and innovation, with over 25 years helping organisations to turn technology into tangible business outcomes. He's worked across startups and complex global enterprises spanning Australasia, the Americas, the UK, and Asia. And as the founder and CEO of an AI and machine learning startup building real-world AI applications, Rajith specialises in taking AI from concept to production, where it actually creates value. His expertise spans deploying AI and machine learning across solutions at scale, and then building high-performing development teams, as well as launching intelligent apps that drive impact across industries. Rajith is passionate about helping organisations move beyond AI theory into real-world execution, building data literacy, embedding AI into operations, and shaping a data decision-driven future. So welcome, Rajith. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. That's a pretty impressive introduction. Thank you for that.
It's a pleasure. It's so good to have you here. So I was thinking about this recently about, we'd spoken about, your background and, how long you've actually been, I guess, in the space of AI and considering it. And what was the moment that you really realised AI wasn't just a technology trend, that it was actually going to really fundamentally change how people worked?
I think about 30 years ago, I got exposed to AI and I thought there was something magical about it. But really about 11 years ago when Amazon Alexa was released, that's when I had the aha moment. I thought, okay, I think this can be really useful. This can change things. But we had a long way to go. But I feel like that was the moment that I realized I need to spend more time on this.
Yeah, amazing. And it sounds like you also started using AI within your own business quite early on. And what was the sort of reaction? What was there kind of fear from other people you worked with? Was it kind of curiosity or resistance to it?
In the beginning, it was resistance. And people were, getting hung up on the accuracy of everything. And look, AI is a probabilistic solution. So it's not, and sometimes it makes mistakes, but people are getting hung up on that. But I guess the real question is it useful? Can we find a use for that? So I had a lot of resistance. And then once you get past the resistance and look at what problems you can solve, it opens up the doors. And also creating a platform or environment for people to ask questions or people to discover, people to experiment, people to be comfortable with. I think that's the key.
And you've just spoken about something that, I've experienced this with some of my own clients, is just that kind of resistance, and it's just below the surface type thing where people are immediately kind of worried about, being replaced, worried that their jobs won't be relevant anymore. Like, when you reach that kind of resistance, what do you think that, most business owners or leaders are sort of getting wrong in that space at the moment?
Yeah, the resistance comes typically from being not included. So I think when you're starting off a journey in AI or any digital transformation for that matter, or any transformation that matter, you should get the people, the staff, the stakeholders involved very early, the consumers of it, the people who are impacted by it. Get them involved really early in the game. Make them part of the journey, create champions, so they will drive the adoption, they will drive the excitement around it. And I think that's the biggest mistake. It's not that something that you can do after, let's do some use acceptance testing and roll it out. It's not that. It's just starting with them, users, staff, stakeholders, partners, starting with them first and then work it out.
So you're saying that, not having it as part of like an IT project that kind of gets rolled out to people and they're a bit blindsided by it?
Yeah, and when I'm talking to organizations, especially business, leaders, I don't actually mention the word AI. I usually look at, look, what are your challenges? What are the opportunities you see? And how can we solve the problem? And then AI may or may not play a part in it. So I think that's the important thing, that realize that if you find a way to transform what you're doing, make it better, there may be other ways of doing it. So keep your mind open and start the discussions early.
And when you look around sort of Australia today, there's quite a few pieces of research and reports that have come out recently around, the issues around productivity and, adoption of AI. What's the one kind of, what do you think most Australian businesses are still getting wrong about AI?
I think it's about making decisions slowly is the challenge. I think you need to make decisions really fast, whether you may not have all the information, but have the courage to make decisions. Whether it's the right one or the wrong one, that's okay. But have enough guardrails that you can check whether that decision is the right thing or it's going to be valuable for us. So I think that the fact that you're taking too long to make decisions or taking no action at all, it's probably the one thing that's slowing us down. And then once you make those decisions, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing decision. You can start small. You can experiment. The decision could be that we are going to try this for 3 to 6 months. And after 6 months, we'll decide whether we want to keep going or whether we need to change tack. That could be a decision. So I think that's important to realize that it's not a yes or no. It's a journey. But the important thing is you need to start the journey.
Yeah, so you're sort of talking about experimentation there, aren't you? Like giving things a go and realizing that, everything might not work the first time, but actually having that courage to experiment with things. And do you think that's something that that you see in your work with clients? Are you seeing people actually trying things out?
Depends. Some customers are very open to that. I think the concepts like co-design, co-development, experimentation, let's try things out. People are afraid to kind of do that, especially service providers or consulting organizations, or we have a need, we'll solve a problem, there's a project that needs to happen. But it could be, let's go on this journey and experiment something, and the outcome could be a learning experience. And I think we need to create an environment and be okay to fail, be okay to learn fast. I think we need to create that environment to do that.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of people don't like hearing that, they're going to have to fail. It's like a cultural thing of, if you try something out and it doesn't work, I mean, that's just part of the journey often. But it seems to be sometimes a culture where people just don't want to even entertain that idea. Which brings me back to something else you said earlier, which was, taking those people on the journey earlier, and engaging them early really does relate very strongly to success in AI projects. Because people know their own problems, right? Intimately, right? They know the problems. They're a font of knowledge around that. So talk to me a little bit about, human first or human-centered design, when you're in the trenches and you're trying to roll out an AI project. I mean, what does that really look like?
As I mentioned before, start with, people first. And I see, on social media, there's these campaigns or, messaging from influencers around AI first. We really need to change that narrative, right? It has to be people first. So work with the business units, the individual SMEs, the users around focusing on the challenges they have. And also educate them around AI. Where AI has weaknesses, it's okay to talk about it. And then work with them around when there is a fact-checking we need to do, how do we do that? How do we make sure the results we get is accurate? Can we use it in the business? So get the stakeholders involved from early, and also from decisions point of view. Get them involved in the decision-making process. Then when you are building a solution, get them involved in building the solution, it's shaping, how it's shaped. And then, of course, testing. And once it's rolled out, continuously monitoring and iterating and giving that feedback and improving.
Yeah, so that continuous process. Can you think of, a moment when, you were in one of these projects that you're often in? Can you think of a moment when the human feedback from, say, the employees completely changed the direction of an AI project?
Yes, I'll give two examples. One is when I was building an app as part of this startup, we did about 4 focus groups. It's about 25 people in each focus group. And we were watching this user who took the phone with the app in it, went into another room and it was a conversational AI, started practicing. Then after that, I asked them, why did you take into the other room? And I said, I wanted to be comfortable in a space and to be open and honest, interacting with it. So that got us thinking that we want to make this a safe place, or the app a safe environment or a safe tool to interact with. So that was part of marketing. We used that, practice this in a safe environment. We changed the way the UI works or UI design based on that. So that was like a really aha moment for me, just watching how that unfolds.
So the whole UI or the user interface was affected by the way that an actual user wanted to interact with the AI tool. Yeah, wow.
And, looking back at it, we didn't make a lot of feature changes to the application. What we made was based on their feedback, user interface changes, the user experience changes. Because technology was sound, and obviously there were some nuances, but the way that was portrayed to the user, way that the users understood, was a very enlightening moment for us.
And there's also this whole thing around, again, back to people worrying about their jobs and, how, AI might potentially, replace them. Where have you seen sort of AI actually free people up? Artificial intelligence, a lot of the conversations I have initially is to break that hold almost of the fear, to say, it's not here to replace you, much like, say a farmer back in the Industrial Revolution, was not replaced by a tractor, right? It just helped them to do more work at scale, spend time on the things that they needed to spend time on to make their own farm, more effective. And so, when you look at how AI can free people up to do more meaningful work, and where have you seen it do that, and where have you seen it also do the opposite?
Where you start the narrative around the people first, and augmenting and supporting, replacing the repetitive, mundane, boring things that you do. So that narrative is really important around communication to your people who are affected. And if you look for opportunities where can we make someone's life better at work? Can we make a team function better? Can we make an organization function better? If you come from that lens, it should be an augmentation, not a replacement. Now, some business leaders might think differently, but if you take that approach, you're going to get the adoption, you're going to get the support from people, you are going to get more success. Where I've seen it work really well is that even campaigns and ads internally, making it more fun, like creating a bot with a persona. Here's Carla doing something. Here's Lucy, our AI bot, which is cute, doing something to help you. He help you to support. Building that narrative, it's not a threat. It's an assistant to help you, get through difficult things you have to do or repetitive things you need to do. And I've seen that very successfully. It comes from organizational change management and communication, and that's where it worked really well.
Yes, the comms layer is really, communications layer is super important, because, I almost think that it's a bad thing sometimes when you look at AI as like an employee or a role, but that's the way that you can actually help people to relate. Yeah, there's a great opportunity there for them to be able to relate to it.
And the instance where it hasn't worked is where when things are mandated. We have to implement AI, we have to use AI, we have to leverage AI as a strategy, a bullet point on a slide deck. And what does that really mean to the business and the user? And what you often get is lack of adoption, lack of participation, and even to a point where unconscious sabotage.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like what you're saying there too is that there's a sense of being able to feel free enough to feel playful with it.
Yes.
To actually make it fun so that people feel as if they can, try things out without the fear of being judged. Yeah. There's a real psychological safety aspect there too.
And there's a huge element of, there's a big chance of failure in AI projects because it makes mistakes. And if you find someone who doesn't like it, doesn't want to do it, don't want to be part of it, they'll just focus on the mistakes.
Yeah.
And because of that, that narrative will become the top headline where the usefulness of it gets buried.
Tell me a little bit more. I mean, you lead a data and AI team of specialists. I mean, how do you keep up with that constant change as a leader?
Yeah, I think from early on in our journey together, or any journey with the team, I work with the staff around just accepting the fact that change is normal, and change is hard for people. Sometimes I want to start my day with exactly what I want to do and continue the week exactly like it is. And people like that. It's comfort, it's easy to do. But what happens is it constantly things change. Classic example is we're building an AI agent for a customer, and mid-project, the platform released a number of features that broke the way the agent works, and also some functionality work differently. So we had to go back and test all that functionality, the new functionality, and then work with the customer on, okay, now things have changed. The way it's going to work is slightly different. How does that impact the outcome? So, and this is a constant thing. It's not just about, day to day. It's about mid-project, things will change. So how do you respond to that if you don't have that culture of understanding change? The other aspect is that when something happens, when a change happens, develop a process to assess that change. Is it good for us? Is it bad for us? Do we really need to adopt it? Can we postpone it? Or what other ways we can know enough about it so that we can use it to our advantage? And that's a constant thing. And you have to look at things constantly. I guess the other aspect is that, AI in itself, the number of releases, number of changes, number of updates for these platforms are, tenfold or hundredfold or 1,000 times compared to any other, SaaS applications or anything like that. So it's really difficult to keep up with change. And if somebody says that, yep, I'm up to date with everything, I think they're lying. So accept that. Like I accept that in front of customers and say, look, I know enough about these areas, maybe most of the important things, but there are things that I'm not going to know, and I probably didn't keep up. I didn't read the latest release of this because there's so many latest releases, right?
Yeah.
That's okay. It's okay. Be okay with, even from a customer's, work with customers around, there's going to be change, and establish that from day one. There will be change.
And I guess that almost comes back to something that's really important, is when you're deciding, to work with a client, it's really a partnership, It's like you've both decided to kind of step off the safety of land into what is quite a rough sea at the moment, like in terms of, the amount of change just flowing, like a vast ocean. And I mean, do you sort of go through selecting your clients because of, where they are with the maturity aspect and things like that? Like, to make sure that, that people who are in enterprise business actually end up working with people who are aligned with them, who will actually see them through those tough times.
It's very important, especially when you're rolling out your first AI project, whether it's internal or with the customer, or you select or find a friendly customer who you have a really good relationship with, who's willing to experiment, who's willing to work through challenges. It's really important when you're starting off, at least the first few projects. If you don't do that, you are going to get the resistance, and it's going to be bad taste on both sides, and it's very important. So within the organization, if you want to roll out an AI solution, or you find a problem that you can solve, pick a team that's willing to experiment, willing to try things out, and even some back office teams that are not directly connected with customers, so there's minimal customer impact. So it's important to find a friendly to work with, the co-design, co-develop, and that will help you with your learning process. And the other thing it creates is once you have an internal team that deployed a solution, it spreads out. This team has now implemented AI, and they are really happy with it, or they talk openly about some of the challenges. Now everyone else want to jump on the bandwagon.
You've got the FOMO. Yeah. And so one of the other things, when we're talking about, going into this kind of, on this quest, if you like, to discover unknown areas, or try to roll out AI in a way which, still doesn't feel too risky. How do you really balance that innovation and that risk?
My first 15 years of career I was in banking. So it's managing risk is kind of like, I started off actually navigating risk, basically, learning to navigate, I should say, risk. I think the true innovation is looking at all those barriers, like, I wouldn't say risk is a barrier, but, constraints and things you need to work with. And I think the true innovation is, how do you navigate through that? If you have a blank canvas, you can draw whatever you want, and it's amazing, but sometimes you don't. So how do you still innovate in a very restricted environment, very privacy concerns or compliance issues, those environments, regulatory environments that are highly regulated? I think true innovation is if you can navigate that and then get an outcome through all those constraints, restrictions, or guidelines and everything that you need to follow. I think that's where true innovation is.
So it's the constraints that almost create the friction for good things to be, or the difficulty of almost the birth of those things actually makes it better.
Yes, and I mean, in my banking days, and we had to do this day in, day out. We were trying to roll out when the iPhone came out. We were trying to roll out, email on the iPhone. It sounds simple, but everyone was using BlackBerrys those days. So we had to go through a lot of barriers to get through that, through security, through working with vendors, and that's, I think, it was innovation. We came up with some amazing things that we probably never would have thought of, or even working with vendors around saying, hey, can you do it this way? If you do it this way, maybe we can get it through our compliance team. Maybe we can tick all the boxes. Maybe we can make it safe. And I think by doing that or taking that journey really helped us to navigate risk and, I guess, be innovative.
Yeah, wow. And I think it's funny, isn't it? Because you're talking about something that's, quite quite some time ago, but I feel like there's these repeatable things that are going on that we've navigated before, but we, for some reason, don't really look back to what we've managed to overcome before and then apply it to what we're doing now, because AI is just another one of those times where we're having to think differently, having to think differently about how we apply the technology. You've helped people kind of go from where they are in terms of being in a risk-averse environment into actually giving something a try and running like an AI pilot. Like, how do you guide leaders through that initial fear state or that resistance?
When I talk to leaders, I get like two ends of the spectrum. And one end, you get big fear in AI and, very opposed to rolling things out, saying things like it's useless, but then the other extreme, you get, we have to have AI in everything. And also very high expectations of AI solutions. So the happy medium, as the name suggests, it's in the middle somewhere. So what I try to do is, I try to bring everyone into that middle where let's explore the challenges. So I start with the challenges first. So the security risks, the compliance risks, the responsible AI challenges, data protection, inaccuracies, the probabilistic nature. I start with that. So let's explore. Most of the time, I feel like the leaders need an audience and somebody to listen. So if you listen to their concerns and say, okay, what if I address this in a different way? What if I alleviate your concern? What if I try in a different way to solve that problem? It's having that conversation. What I find that when you listen to concerns and try to work through it, you get the people who are concerned a little more relaxed. They want to come to the table to discuss what are the options. And then at the other spectrum, we have leaders with really high expectations of AI. And then I walk through all the challenges with it and which scenario will it suit. And it's a journey. You're not going to get the accurate answer all the time. It's not deterministic. You can't guarantee things. So once you kind of have those conversations and they understand the good, bad, and the ugly parts of AI, then they are more open to looking at how can we make it more useful? How can we build systems using AI that are useful?
Yeah, wow. So there's a whole lot of stages to this as well. What advice would you also give to leaders around things like, that employees are worried or resistant, and they're thinking in the back of their minds, maybe consciously or unconsciously, that they're going to have to make people redundant, or if AI is going to make people irrelevant? How do you kind of frame that conversation?
I think have that, even that, position around people first position. AI is an augmentation. It's not a replacement. Have those words, those, themes as part of what you do, as part of your strategy, and then discuss about them. Look at, get representatives from each business unit, different demographics within your business, and set up councils or focus groups or working groups to discuss these questions. So if you can convince a champion or someone who's very vocal about good, bad, and the ugly of AI, they can influence the others. So set up those discussion groups, forums, focus groups, and talk about these problems, these questions openly. And it's really difficult to say AI will not replace jobs. There'll be, some impact, but we don't know what that is, right? But let's navigate that. So I think it's important to have those conversations, start early, set up working groups, focus groups, even team leads, get them in and ask about iOS employees' concern. Arm them with tools to have those conversations. And then maybe even work with them around how to engage employees, how to identify people who are a lot more concerned or not, and thinking about those kind of problems.
Yeah. So would you say then that what I'm hearing is that having a point of view is actually really important?
Yes.
Having a point of view and actually sharing that organization wide, AI, what it means out in the ether or to the rest of the market. What does it mean in the context of your organization? Yeah. So that is that fair? Like, is that what you're saying?
Yes. This replacement is an interesting one because there will be some disruption to types of jobs and everything. But did you know there are 4,800 typists in Australia?
Wow, I did not know this statistic.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So you think somebody sits there and type things are irrelevant. So we don't know what's going to happen. But there are parts of jobs that can be automated. So imagine that you have the choice to say, actually, this part of my job, this part of my this function probably can be automated, defined different ways, or give it to AI to do. Then I'll focus on higher order things. Because I think one of the most important things about staff that you're in your organizations, they know your business, they know your company, they know your domain, they know the processes, so they can either be part of improving and getting the best out of it, and also come up with newer things to transform or better ways of doing things. So if they have the time to do that, you will see certain things like problems being solved, and also new ways of doing things, new product ideas, new efficiencies will come out of it. So it's that let's take that space, that that busy work out of everyone, and get them to really focus on how can we help the organization, how can we be part of it, how can we be part of changing the organization.
You're reminding me of a story about innovation in a big Australian company, in that organization they had a whole lot of apps that people had made, so this company is to do with logistics, and they did an audit of all of these apps, and they said, these people have just been being a shadow IT, bringing in things like 70 different apps, and it's so interesting. Instead of capitalizing on that, they just kind of shut them all down. But it was like that was innovation in action, like these people had found workarounds, before the days of AI, and they had actually implemented them into little apps and, things that would actually help them, and created tools for their everyday work. So it's kind of like looking for those things and celebrating them rather than kind of shutting them down.
That's a good point. I think it's going to be more challenging in the future in that area. Applications or apps take considerable knowledge and skills to develop. Whether to do it properly or badly, you still need some skills to put things together. Where when it comes to AI agents or AI solutions, it can be quite easy to create something. It may not be perfect, but it becomes really easy to create something. And especially around creating agents, your personal agents to do things. And you are going to get this agent sprawl or AI solution sprawl everywhere. So how do you manage that? It's really important to understand how can you manage that. So do you let anyone do everything they want? Or do you put some guardrails? Do you train them? Do you create a safe environment for them to create things themselves and be useful? And do you offer them the training and the guidance and the support needed to build things properly and build things effectively? And I think that those are the questions you should ask yourself if you're a leader. Am I going to restrict? Am I going to open it up? In that scale, where am I going to sit? Where are we as an organization going to sit?
Yes, very much around potentially enabling as well. But so when you look to the future, what's the thing you're sort of most optimistic about in this next chapter, and the one thing that kind of keeps you up at night?
Optimistic. I feel like Australia has been slow or a little bit behind in adoption. Commercialization aspects of it. I mean, we have amazing research ecosystem, right? And I had the privilege to be exposed to that, but amazing research ecosystem. But from research to commercialization or productionization or putting it in front of users or customers or systems, it's challenging in Australia. What I'm really excited about is that we have an opportunity. Because we have been a little bit behind and cautious, we also have a huge opportunity to capitalize on that and transform our businesses and our people, the way we do things. That's what I'm really excited about, especially in areas, things like robotics. We can really leverage that and bring some of the manufacturing and services that we had sent overseas internally, do things, Australian-made things. We are a very innovative country, but we will make bits and pieces, but we may not put everything together. So let's put things together and then make some things out of it. And I think that's what excites me the most.
Yeah. And what's the stuff that sort of keeps you up at night? What are the things that are keeping you a little bit worried about, what's going to happen in the next 5 years?
Worry about our kids. I think what kind of a future are we leaving them? So that's one of the drivers that I'm part of this journey. I want to keep on top of what's going on and how we can be part of using disruptive technology like AI for good. How can we make sure the impact on humans is positive? And what are we leaving for our kids, our children? We were very fortunate to go through amazing technology transformation in our lives. Now, they are going to go through a different kind of a technology transformations, or they're going to be left with very challenging technology transformation that could be very harmful or really beneficial. But one of the things that worries me is that, if we don't go the right way, if we don't choose the right paths, what are we leaving for our children?
Yeah, it is a worry, isn't it? And so in 5 years, if, in your opinion, if AI is done right, what would that look like inside like an Australian enterprise?
I feel like robotics will play a huge part. You have these digital automations or AI systems that use day to day, whether it's optimizing you do finance or customer service. But physical AI is, I think, where we will see a lot more innovation, and it's already happening with number of startups in Australia pioneering, in those fields where it's dominated by big players in the market, and we are a small player pioneering in these areas. We have a seat at the table, and I think it really excites me. I think that's in the next 5 years we see that, and more familiar we become interacting with AI, whether it's our parents to kids, more acceptance we have towards working with the systems. That means that we will try things like, it could be starting off with your Roomba or iRobot to very sophisticated personal robots to help the elderly or people with disadvantages. And I think that's where we are heading. Also, building things in Australia can be costly, and I think robotics can play a huge role in making things in Australia for the world as well as for us.
So just building on what you were saying earlier around, what might happen in the next 5 years and what might AI look like if it's done right inside these organisations. The one thing I'm picking up on and hearing is that there's an optimism around, potentially things that we've let go of, like here in Australia, as you've said, the manufacturing side of it actually kind of boomeranging back here because we have a lot of that expertise and definitely the appetite around that. Is that kind of the path you think that might happen?
Definitely. We also have an opportunity to create things a lot more secure. I think that's a key aspect of it. A lot of the systems or even hardware that you get these days, even cars, they have back-to-base connectivity. And where is that base? It could be an international organization, right? And that's scary and challenging. Your smart car, your electric car has that monitoring, maintenance, and things that goes back to the manufacturer in another country. Imagine if we can build an ecosystem that is held here, and that means we can govern, we can control, we can put compliance around it, and can be safe. And I think there's a huge opportunity to create that ecosystem to deploy AI solutions that are safe and responsible within the Australian ecosystem. I think that's a real big opportunity we have.
It's interesting. We've been through that whole evolution of, Ford and Holden and all these things, seeing all this whole decline, but maybe that whole culture in Australia of, loving motor vehicles and things can actually come back in a different form. Because it's, literally almost a cult, isn't it? Are you a Ford or a Holden kind of person? I mean, that could look interesting in the future.
Definitely. My first car was a Holden. Actually, no, that's not true. My first car was a hand-me-down Datsun, but the car I spent the money on buying was the car I bought was a Holden, and the second car. So, and I really like those cars, and it's such a shame that they're not manufactured here. But I feel like we have a really good opportunity to take that leadership in safe and responsible AI practices, safe, responsible, and sovereign AI practices. And if we nail that, everything else becomes easy, I think.
Yeah.
Everything else becomes a platform for innovation. I think we're in a unique space, but there has to be some support. Our startups, our small businesses in Australia, have a lot of small businesses. We need to support them in better ways to adopt AI, to utilize AI and other kind of digital solutions within their business. And if we can address that, I think we can do really well in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And obviously, one of the reasons for doing this podcast in the first place is absolutely because of, trying to support, enterprise level businesses, the lifeblood of Australian economy. So, you've seen things like, the hype and the fear and the progress around AI. But what's the one truth about AI adoption that no one's saying out loud?
One truth about AI adoption. I think people talk about, there's obviously a lot of hype around, amazing things it can do. There's not enough around understanding the fundamentals, so the basics of what it means. It's, it can make mistakes. And what we see is the positive scenario or the real extreme, right? Or AI made a wrong decision and something happened. Or somebody became a billionaire overnight or something like that, right? That we see that extreme. I think the hidden narrative is somewhere in the middle. Small transformations, small things, and it was challenging, it had problems, it was giving, but I was able to find a useful outcome. And that's what not many people are talking about. And also, there's a lot less things around people first approach. I see on social media, AI first, be AI first organization, AI first platform, AI first training course, AI first this. We need to talk a lot about people first, and that's not being talked about much.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of the big fails that you see out there in market at the moment are around people using AI to become a hero in their own workplace, right? Is to think that, look at me, I've done all this work, and there's almost like some ego involved in that, right? And, we've seen one of the big four consulting firms, who shall not be named, really take a massive whipping from, the AFR. And they're those situations where, they're using AI in their work, but then, it's completely, going off on a huge hallucination and making up references, So, if every Australian CEO just listened to this episode today, what's the one thing that you'd really want them to take away?
Start the journey. If you had some false starts, that's okay, but do a restart or try different things. But most importantly, take a people-first approach. I think that's the key.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today, Rajith. I've just so enjoyed listening to, some of the stories that you've had to share with us. And, I hope that, enterprise and business leaders get the opportunity to take some of those learnings, from your 25 years worth of experience, 30 years working with AI, and take on some of that into starting their own journey. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Fiona.
We hope you enjoyed listening today. We'd love it if you left us a rating, and you can catch us on Substack, YouTube, or your favourite podcasting platform.